Okay. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I see some people already joining in, and since it's past 7, we're gonna start. I want to welcome you to the series of fireside chats by the Women Tech Network. We are inviting phenomenal and outstanding women to inspire and empower you on your career journeys. I am Vasilina Apostolova. Some of you may know me as the marketing and content manager for the Women Tech Network. I am replacing our CEO and founder, Anna Radulski, today as she is tackling the organization of the Women Tech Global Awards coming this December 3rd. And today we have a very special guest, Maja Schreiner. She is the CEO and founder of Sharing Tribe, which is a startup that brings together women and companies in tech in a job sharing model. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Maja spent 20 years in the tech industry, taking on roles from software development through software testing to agile leadership and product development and management. Maja is also an international speaker on various topics around agile leadership, collaboration, QA, and testing. So for everyone who is tuning in, feel free to ask your questions in the chat or comments. And whenever you hear something that resonates with you, please do let us know. Maja, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time today to share your insights.
Thank you so much, Vasilina, for having me and for the invitation. I'm really, really delighted to be here with all of you.
We're also very happy to have you. And if you're ready, we can start with some questions.
Yes, I am.
Great. So the first question I have today is actually regarding to the beginnings of your career. You were born and raised in Serbia, where you completed your studies in information systems and technologies. Then you found a job at a startup in Lausanne and moved to Switzerland, where you've been since. Will you share with us the difference in the experience as a woman in tech between the two countries?
Yes, of course, gladly. So, as you said, yes, I originally come from Serbia, where I grew up. And for some of you that know a bit of Balkan and also Eastern European culture, you might know that actually there, even at that time, there was much more of equality between men and women. In terms of working conditions, and actually it's part of the history also, and also part of the, I would say, wealthy or not so wealthy style, right? Comparing to, for example, Switzerland or some Western European countries. So I'm raised up on the, let's say, values and this kind of mindset that everything is possible first, when you try it, of course. And on the other side, that women are completely equal, actually. And so also for these studies, I actually already as a small child was always super interested in computers and also in foreign languages. So when I had to choose what I should study, it wasn't a surprise to choose IT, actually, and information systems, because that is for me a great merge between my love for foreign languages and also having an opportunity later to explore the world, but also again to combine with my main passion for computers. And at the university, we were almost 50-50, male and women. So it wasn't a really no issue, right? And I mean, I did notice towards the end, and I don't want to be biased now when I say that, but it was true that most of us females, really most of us finished on time, while the guys would spend time coding in the night and doing some side projects, and were really kind of geeks, right? Again, I don't want to be biased, but I did notice a bit of these differences already in Serbia, right? But still, again, we were a lot of ladies, a lot of young women, right? And also in my first job that I actually started while completing my diploma thesis, that was actually we only had one guy who already graduated at that point, or was almost graduated, right? Like us. And I think it was 5 girls, right? So it was like kind of a women club at work. And I was actually a database developer at that time for around 10 months before I moved to Switzerland. And Switzerland that's a very long story why I came to Switzerland. But basically it was, for me personally, like kind of everything what I was missing in Serbia, right? The economical and political stability and kind of having everything organized. I don't know how many people in the audience know something about Switzerland, but it's like, I always say it's like a Heidi land. Like if you know Heidi, you know, everything is like perfect, mountains, cheese, chocolate, everything works, right? And it is really why I stayed, right? Because it's really great country. On the other side, I would say even today, right? I'm kind of puzzled when I hear people, oh, you are a woman and you are in IT and you studied IT and you have this experience. And it's kind of still, even after 20 years, some of us, okay, things are changing and improving, but you can imagine 20 years ago when I came, it was in 2000, it was like really always almost repeatedly being an only woman on your team. And so, yeah, that is more or less the answer to your question. It is a huge cultural difference, right? And it is not only in IT, it is in general. It is kind of still, unfortunately, a bit of traditional society, but there is some research on that, but I mean statistics as well, but it is really based on a lot of different culture in like Eastern and Western Europe. And a lot of coming background, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coming from the Balkans, I can relate with you on
yes.
many of those points.
And then, okay. Yeah, now that you mentioned that, I mean, most of the women I did get to know in the last 20 years, right? They come from, let's say, 80% of them come from all these different countries. A lot of them come from Eastern Europe, of course, from India, China, even United States, or Germany in some rare cases, or France, right? Like neighboring countries to Switzerland. But there are still so less women studying technology, engineering. They call it, I think in English language, they call STEM, right? Like for science, yes. Technology, engineering, and maths. Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe we tackle this fact a bit later during the call.
Yes, I would love to do that. But before we get there, I actually wanted to ask you about your time at Swisscom, because while you were there, your experience as a woman in tech motivated you to start the Swisscom Women in Tech and Lead community. Would you tell us more about it, and what were the challenges you faced and the impact that you achieved with that initiative?
Yes, very gladly. So actually, I joined Swisscom in 2014 after already spending enough of years before, also working for some other companies in Switzerland. And so what brought me to Swisscom was first a wish to work for a very large company and wish to have much more of opportunities for my career advancement as well. But basically, Swisscom is like the leading telecom industry provider, right? And also a huge IT company as well. And the variety and diversity of the products we offer was also what was super interesting for me. And so still, I mean, there were women, of course, I wasn't the only woman in the company, but again, this pattern kept repeating, right? So I was again one of the very few women in this large project team, right? And it was kind of, again, a bit of pattern that in terms of roles and in terms of a role, how they were kind of split, right? And at some point, since I'm also a very social person, right? And I like connecting people, I like exchanging ideas, and I like exchanging experiences. I was still thinking also in terms of the whole glass ceiling. That is also a fact, right? For many women in many countries and also in the tech industry. I was, again, very interested and really passionate to create this project, like a kind of side project, and really voluntarily. So I invited few of those other women I knew at the company, right? I dropped them an email and asked them, what do you think we create this whole community? I want to really initiate that. I'm ready to be a leader, like kind of first role model for this community. Would you be willing to come to this first kickoff meeting, right? And then the ball just started rolling, right? Because you can imagine how it works with networks. Those other women or even men knew. I mean, I need to add, I didn't invite only women. That is what I can also explain later. But so the others invited the others, right? So it really created a small start. Like maybe we had 20 or 30 people in this very first kickoff workshop where we discussed the whole vision, the goals, right? This is, by the way, always very important. When you want to start something, you always should start with why. And you should be clear about why you are doing it, right? And not just, okay, now let's do a coffee together. I mean, having coffee is great, but you have to be a bit clear about more. And back to your question with challenges, I would say I didn't really have challenges, right? I mean, I was very blessed to have people who were sharing the same vision and who also volunteered to help me organize one or the other event. But I do always underline that I spent a lot of my free time on that, right? I spent a lot of time inviting others, motivating them to come, selling one or the other talk from one or the other line manager or even our HR boss who came once to give his talk. So it was a lot of effort, right? And I'm super proud on that. So one of the main achievements is that at the end we have like 200 people or mostly women on the subscriber list, right? And okay, now in the times of COVID, somebody who took over this year, this whole community leadership is doing it online, of course, right?
Yeah.
But you can imagine up to the end of last year, it was all live and we had monthly meetings, we had quarterly, a lot of presentations and events. And at the end, we were included some around the middle of the project, we were included on the whole company's HR diversity roadmap. So it was like one of the main successes, right? So that we were recognized by the whole company. And I also need to add this for the sake of clarity, that the whole HR diversity team from Swisscom also did sponsor us with, you know, what you need to do for organizing one or the other event to get some kind of, we call it apero in Switzerland, like kind of snacks or you know, beverages, right? So that was covered by them, and they did actually from the beginning understand that the idea and understood the vision. And just to sum it up, one of the also other learnings is that those kind of initiatives, right, those kind of communities is always best to create bottom up, right, from your employees. Because if they are pushed from a company, it is nice, of course, to push one or the other program, but if the employees don't understand and are not willing to spend their paid or even free time on something, independent what it is, then it's always kind of not the full success, right? But if you have employees that are really passionate about that, then it's really a success.
Sounds wonderful, and congratulations on the success of that initiative and that it's still going on, even though
Yes.
it's online. We all have to do that, as we can see. So something that I would say it feels that you needed in that situation, in making that happen, was grit, which is something that you've also said is your best quality. But you also have said that the best advice that you have gotten is to be diplomatic instead of pushy. And what I'm wondering is how you manage to marry these two concepts and find the perfect intersection between them, as courage can often seem pushy in a woman due to common biases.
Yes, it can, but I always say it is it is completely possible to merge both. For me, courage and grit is really, I mean, as the words say, right? You have to be courageous, and otherwise you will end up always asking yourself, what if I did this decision or not? And just, you really have to take things into your hands. And when you have this opportunity, and you also have to recognize the opportunities, of course, right? So again, I always say that is definitely part of my Serbian heritage, that we as a as a nation are, somebody would say, sometimes a bit, too courageous, right? And maybe not too diplomatic as Swiss people. But again, I'm blessed by these life consequences, so to say, that I can marry both. And not being pushy and being diplomatic is, again, right, you need courage to ask people, you need courage to do something, you need courage to create a project like community or to start your own startup. But you have to know how to handle different personalities and different decision makers, right? You have to understand their mindset, you have to understand the culture. And again, culture in Switzerland is very different than in Serbia, right? You can't just call somebody and say, let's do this, right? You have to sell them idea. This is how it works. And if you understand that they are not in, you have to accept that. You shouldn't be like pushing them to something that they are not willing to say. And again, being diplomatic is, again, you have to recognize what you should say to whom and when, right? Who is willing to listen, who is able to understand, and in what context, and not just always say your opinion and always think you know the best, and just really listen to others. This is also, by the way, I learned in all these years, active listening. And this is also what I learned, and I believe a lot of other in the audience, and by working with others, right? I'm a huge fan of teamwork and of listening to others. So I always stress that it is very, very important, right? To listen and to reflect, all this agile or lean development process, like inspect and adapt and reflect and review and not push, and just, I hope that answers your question.
Oh no, I think it does. I also I resonate with you. I mean, it resonates with me, but I feel something that you said is also quite important, that it's something that we all need to hear, but until we work enough with people and experience it ourselves, it's going to be a very hard lesson to learn. Otherwise, from just hearing about it, you have to learn to read and listen to people, which is quite the skill. But I think it's a beautiful insight. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And actually, I believe that one of the main assets of a great leader is actually courage, right? You have to be courageous on all these different aspects, on all those different levels, right? Because if you're not, then you're not a real leader, at least if you ask me. So
actually, that makes a great transition for what I wanted to ask you about next, because it's again related to courage and also with some challenges that you've faced in your life. You were a tech lead at the startup that brought you to Switzerland, which unfortunately ran out of funding after 6 months of you being there because it was influenced by the dot-com bubble burst. So then you took a job as a software engineer after having been a tech lead. And I think in the current pandemic climate, your experience can probably resonate with many women. What is your advice to navigate the stressful time between jobs and also potentially having to take a step back on the career ladder for a little bit?
Yes. So I need to explain first about this very first startup that I joined. You can imagine when you are 24, right? And just coming from Serbia to Switzerland, and you have no kind of mentor or coach. I mean, at that time, honestly, I didn't know that there is something like mentor or coach. So I asked a few people that I knew and that I could trust. What do they think? Shall I go to this startup in Lausanne, which is, by the way, awesome city? I love it. Or go in the suburbs of Bern, like kind of a village, and work for a maybe not so exciting job, right? That were at that point my two opportunities in Switzerland. So everybody said, go to Lausanne, of course, right? And then I came there and they told me, you're going to be a team lead of this small team. So I have, again, to underline, it is a difference when you work in a small startup that consists of like 10 people, right? Then being a tech/team lead, it's not like you are a tech lead at Amazon, right? Or at Netflix. So it was a very nice role. It was a cool role. So because I was responsible for software design and software architecture. But I have also to add to this story that it was in this C++. I don't know if anybody knows what C++ is as a programming language. So I actually made a transition from being a database developer, where I was actually trained for 10 months in Belgrade. You can imagine I went through all this training in Oracle and database development, PLSQL, and then I actually switched to C++ that I knew from university, but I wasn't like super skilled in writing code in C++ or like, and there I was this tech/team lead, but it was like a team of 3 people, right? You have to understand that. And it is true that the company ran out of funding. And that because of the dot-com burst, that it was super hard to find the next job. And when I came only for a very temporary work permit. That is also interesting to understand, right? I just came for 6 months, and then my working permit was extended. But then me and some other people got fired because of the funding, right, in the 7th month. So I still kind of had a working permit. And that goes, again, back to courage, grit, not giving up, right? After these first 6 months, you can imagine I had an awesome salary in Switzerland comparing to the one in Serbia. And then some people were telling me, why don't you just come back to Serbia, right? You earned some money. And then I said, so what? I want to stay here. Then there was this great opportunity at a much larger and, how do you say, already known company, right? So it wasn't, it's always a matter of opportunities and your choice and what is good for your phase of life, I say, right? So for me, it wasn't a step back. On the contrary, it was actually a new step and actually step further because I was able to switch from C++ to Java that I love until this day. If you ask me what is the best programming language, I will always tell you that is Java. And and I had an awesome team. I had a great boss. I had a great contact to customers, and I had nice projects in banking industry. So I always say, again, when I reflect on this whole career and the whole roles, it is really not important the role. Because, and I assume that everybody understands this until now, and especially in 2020, because in every role you can be a leader. You can walk the talk, right? And you can be an expert and specialist. And you just need to be sure what is the best role for you at that moment and for your future, of course, right? So it was super great jobs with a lot of differences, of course. But this is what I, by the way, love, this whole variety, right? I'm not type of person who will just go to work in one company for 20 years. I have to admit that publicly now. And I click the best with people who share the similar mindset, who like to explore, who like to change roles, careers. This is also why I later changed from, but that's maybe part of some next questions.
Well, sure. Thank you for that. Maybe we can move to the next question, which I think is also very interesting in terms of the current climate with the pandemic going on. About when you started at Swisscom, you already had 2 young children, and as a result, you arranged actually for yourself a part-time position at 80%. So how did you manage to arrange that? And also, would you tell us more about the concept of job sharing models that has become like a big focus for you right now?
Yes. So exactly. Actually, it's also important to add that I actually never had a career break while having my small kids. Only with the first child, that was before Swisscom, right? I was able to take unpaid leave. So I actually was 1 year with my first daughter at home, and it was awesome time, by the way. So actually, in Switzerland, it is quite common that that people do work part-time, and something between 50 or 60 up to 80 or even 90% workload. And I always remember how it's kind of different understanding and wording of a part-time, right? Because if you say 80%, for me, it's almost like full-time, right? It's only this one day that is missing. So actually, before Swisscom, I was working in another company in the 60 to 70 workload. And my husband, by the way, was also able to reduce to 80% at the company he works. So that is the type of model that a lot of families apply, so to say, in Switzerland especially, to be able to have enough time to spend with their children, right? But again, I always say it's matter of choice, right? And I always also say that it's much better to continue your career, even working part-time in 50, 60, 80% workload, than to make a real cut. Because this is where the problems start, especially in Western Europe. It is very hard to get back to work when you make this break. And for Swisscom, actually, it's one of the pioneers in flexible workforce and in giving all these different opportunities of flexibility. And it's not only for parents, it's like also for people who study still, right? Or doing their MBAs or doing more sports or for whatever reason don't want or can't work 100%. So 80% was kind of, it was normal to ask for that. So it wasn't a real problem. And that was like 6 years ago. And nowadays I can say that I'm always happy to see that there are more and more companies where they say in Switzerland, I mean, I know mostly for Switzerland, of course, they say 80% is quite okay. Also for the leadership positions, by the way. So, and then even if the company wants to have you only working full time, it's always a matter of negotiation, right? You can sign 100% contract, but you have to negotiate for a bit more flexibility. And now with COVID, I'm also super happy to see, and I think all of us or most of us, that companies are finally understanding that you can trust somebody to finish the work, right? And to do it in a great quality and to do it on time, even if this person works from home and even if this person maybe makes a break between 5 to 9 to be with the family or to do jogging or whatever, it's normal, right? And it's much better to have relaxed and work-life balanced employees than to have them stressed, because then you know what can happen.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm hoping that comes out of the situation, is that employers actually become more open to that kind of arrangement, as they had to be now, but hopefully in the future. So that brings me to the job sharing models. Can you explain a little bit more about that concept? I think it's really, really interesting to hear about it.
Yes, of course, gladly. So actually, as the name says, right, job sharing is about sharing one job or sharing one role. And it is when actually two people work very closely together in a small we call it here tandem, or kind of couple, right? Or like you can call it small team, but they work closely together. They both work less than full time. And then they actually fill requirements together, and actually they exceed the requirements for this one full-time job. Because normally, even if you have two software engineers that know Java like since years, they tick a bit differently, right? They might write their code a bit differently or see the problem differently. And as we all know, actually two heads together, they think more than one, better than one, right? And it is also proven by a lot of research that when people work closely together in job sharing or in general, right, they achieve much better results. And then when you shape your teams together so that they cover not only common set of skills for any role, or not even in IT, by the way, job sharing is very much known, for example, for doctors, by the way, which is also very interesting. So they cover not only the common set of skills, but they cover complementary set of skills, right? And they have maybe some different set of soft skills, right? Then actually they are much stronger together and create much larger outcome, and actually create more innovative products. And when the companies have more innovation, then they have also more revenue. So it's kind of a nice circle. And I came to this whole term, or the whole, how shall I say, model, right? The whole model while working at Swisscom. Again, I have to give credit to Swisscom as a very flexible company and really a pioneer in exploring all these different models. And so I heard about it from HR or even from the press. I'm not quite sure. I heard it from different sides. And I also understood by myself already, right? Because I was employed in a, let's say, a very nice position, on a nice career step, but with 80%. And then it is also true that when you work 80%, it's always this one day that is missing, because you have responsibility and you have enough of tasks for a full-time job, right? And imagine you have to go on a holiday and then you work a lot, right, to give it somebody who is kind of unofficial deputy. And then you come and you go to holiday, you relax, right? And then you come back and then still a pile of work is waiting for you, right? And you kind of think, okay, what happened now? Now everything starts from the beginning. And it is much better to have somebody who is really your close deputy. That is also one of the great advantages with the job sharing, is that normally not both persons would get sick, right, at the same time. I mean, okay, now with COVID is a bit tricky, but normally they don't. And or, for example, they can adjust their holidays to go not at the same time in a holiday. So you always have this continuous flow of work. You have knowledge exchange, and exactly this knowledge exchange, and knowing what the other person is doing, and what are the shared goals. Like, you share responsibility and you share the goals around your job. So yeah.
Sounds awesome to have somebody to fall back on, especially with the vacation part. Is a really, I could definitely, I think anybody can relate to that part. Really.
Yes. And then there are also a few other models, right? I don't know how about the companies you know, but for example, a lot of companies are introducing this kind of senior and junior model, a person working together as a part of coaching and a part of, again, knowledge sharing, right? Imagine you are like, I don't know, 40 plus, 50 plus, even maybe 60, and before you go to the pension, you might want to, I hope you want to pass on all this huge knowledge you have about this, whatever we're doing, right? And it's always much better to create this kind of, I call it backup solution for companies, right? And the juniors or younger generation, as you know, they are much more tech affine, right? They know all these tools, they are fast learners, and then this great match of huge experience in business acumen can be matched to somebody who is really super fit in all these technologies, right? And create a really win-win situation.
Oh, that's great. We didn't know about that one either, but have just had the pleasure of had that in past experiences at work. So I want to ask you a little bit about your current business and the passion you have for it, because you did start it as a passion project on the side while you were at your corporate job, and then you moved to a startup to work in actually a double role as a product owner and product manager, but did leave during the COVID-19 lockdown. because you did realize that you wanted to focus first on your family and on your own business, because you were so passionate about it. And in light of that, I am curious, why do you think that companies should still support their employees' passion project?
Yes, very good question, and it is true what you said, that after spending a long time with Swisscom, I wanted to do something completely different. And it is also true that as already mentioned, I was actually, okay, I need to mention that as well. The whole idea about job sharing, I've heard while I was at Swisscom like many years ago and explored a lot. And it was always kind of, okay, I would love to have a real job sharing partner and then to apply together to, let's say, 1 or 2 steps higher position as a leader of this or that role. And that didn't work, I have to admit. It was not so easy to find this correct match at that point. But what I really achieved, and I'm also very proud about that, and I think my unofficial job sharing partner as well, is that it was a kind of this senior junior combination, right? I had to coach somebody and actually many young, very, very young apprentices in software testing. And so that goes back to the personal match, right? I mean, personalities match. You have to have somebody that is really clicking with you, right? And that is very important. And that you can trust and reverse. So it was, we did it actually for more than I think even almost 2.5 years, that I knew that I kind of went to my boss and told him, look, I work only 80%, but I have so many holiday days, etc., etc. I suggest this colleague who already knows enough about software testing is ready to be my deputy when I'm on a holiday, right? And then we also put this whole topic in the whole team, and it was fine for everybody, right? So for me, that was super like the most fulfilling period, these 2.5 years, when I knew when I go to holiday with my family and I lay on a beach in France, that I don't need to read my emails, right? And the reverse, of course, when he was absent, I was doing a kind of double job. So again, as you said, I did start exploring that. And then last year, when I mentioned to my boss at that point to reduce to 60% from 80 in order to have enough of time to focus on my side project or even starting my own business, he said no, because he thought I wouldn't have enough time for my main job, right? And that goes back to the opportunities. You have to be at the right place at the right time, right? And you have to know what you want. And at that moment, obviously, it wasn't a good fit. And I believe that the companies should really, really encourage employees. For example, I think Google, I am not sure if they do that even today, but they had this whole 80-20% culture. I mean, you are employed full-time in a full-time contract, but you still have Friday to work on any side project you want. And that really brings and actually encourages employees to be even more motivated, because they know that their talents are fully exploited, right? They know that maybe they have a talent for, as I have, right, organizing events, running community, networking, connecting people, creating matches for job sharing, right? But that is not my main job, right? But I still love to do that, and I can do that. And employers should understand that diverse set of skills at every personality, at every employee, are actually a huge asset for their enterprise, right? I don't know if you are familiar with this term of T-shaping, right? As a letter of T, you have your specialist in one area. For example, you might be a super back-end developer, but you are T-shaped in terms of that you understand front-end code. You might be even able to write a bit of front-end code, or to even make a discussion with somebody else who is doing that. Or you understand the aspects of DevOps, right? When we are talking about IT again, or you even understand data science, or et cetera, right? And because I always say that to everybody, you can't be only a specialist nowadays. You have to also to be generalist, and this is what some companies are understanding or starting to understand. And I always say this type of side projects, they don't have to be indefinite, right? You can have side projects for 1 month or 3 months and set goals. That is, by the way, what works for both sides, right? To say we will have a kind of roadmap, we will have a plan with milestones, and by the way, again, I need to mention Swisscom or some other companies I know, mostly larger companies, that they understand that, right? They really encourage that in different programs, talent development, side projects, etc.
Do they support personal side projects, or do they support maybe something that's just to clarify for the audience?
Yes, good question. I would say the personal projects need to be done in a free time, right? This is not your working time, as far as I know. But then you can combine those skills, right? You can combine the skills you gain in your personal projects and apply them to your working projects, right? And at work, again, there can be so many different initiatives you can actually suggest, right? I don't know about the audience, but again, when I come back to the Swisscom's example, we've been through so many transformations and organizational transformations for the years, and I think that does resemble to many of us, right? This whole digital transformation, again, organizational and becoming more agile as a company, really like a whole company on all levels. And then you can imagine that sometimes you do still work in a bit of traditional project, and then you can always suggest, right? You can always say, yeah, I think maybe we can improve this, or we can improve that. And it doesn't even have to do with transformation of your department, but anything around your work, right? Maybe you have a typical set of tasks you have to do for any role, but you see out of the box, right? You see the whole picture, you see all these interfaces. This is again engineer and me talking, but you have to, and that comes, by the way, with experience, of course. That comes with experience, and that comes a lot from talking with others and listening to them. So you have to be open and courageous to ask all these important questions. And you have to be clear that, okay, maybe you will get a first no, right? Or even a second no, or third no. But you have to, if you want to do that, you have to stay on track, right?
If it's okay to ask, like, how did you
Sure.
present your, when you went to talk to them about reducing your workload so that you can handle that project, how did you present it to them so that you convince them?
Well, I mean, when we are talking about this last year, when my boss at that time said no, first he knew that I am already running this internal community at Swisscom, right? And he knew that I'm a mom, and I call it family manager here at home. And he knew that I'm very good at my current job at that point as a test lead in this whole agile testing setup. But he also knew that I want to do much more, right? And then you can imagine, again, that goes back to this kind of mindset, right? Are you supporting your employee to go further? Are you giving him or her this chance, right? And saying this person or this employee has this diverse set of talents and interests and motivation to do this? Or are you really putting them in this kind of box and saying, I'm sorry, but I can't help you, right? And then I always, again, from my today's perspective, I always advise everybody I know and who asks me, don't spend too much time and too much time in a situation that is not fulfilling for you, right? It's just not worth it, right? And but back to your very original question, you should have your pitch deck, I suppose. You should be very clear what you are presenting. They always say know your why, but know your what and how, right? So you should have all these different things cleared up for you. And then you can practice your pitch, of course, in front of your audience at home or your best friends or best colleagues, whatever. And by the way, it always helps if you're not alone in that initiative, right? If you have team colleagues, if you have friends, whoever it is who is sharing the same idea. That is also when you have to run your startup or to create your own company, it is quite difficult to do everything by yourself, right? So again, to sum it up, be clear, have a pitch, and have people who are backing you up.
Thank you for that one.
Yes, you're welcome.
That takes us to the fact that yes, you wanted to achieve something more with your idea, so you ended up being an entrepreneur. And I think it would be interesting because I'm sure there's women in our network who also are interested in that. What are the challenges that you face as a woman entrepreneur?
I have to say that actually, as being a woman entrepreneur, I don't have any challenges, or I really honestly didn't notice any wrong comment or whatever. On the contrary. And that, by the way, probably goes back to the fact that there are not so many women entrepreneurs. And anyway, still not enough women in tech. So actually, honestly, everybody is very happy to talk about the idea, about the business, and to support me. I really have to say I had so many people who I didn't know originally, right? But I was connected to them through my colleagues or friends. And I'm really super grateful for all these talks and insights. The only thing that is a fact is that it is true that we still live in a very male-dominant culture, and maybe even if you read about Silicon Valley itself, it is also very male-dominated. And mostly the startups that are funded or run by like a typical male team, you can see all these photos, yeah, right? I mean, in the press or wherever in social media, like a team of 2 male founders, a team of 4 male founders, 6 male founders. I even have an example, I don't want to name them, of a company startup in Switzerland with 8 male founders. And then I was like, what is going on there? I mean, were they not looking for this one lady, right? At least one, anyways, and so again, it's very hard. There are still these stereotypes, right? And the biases about funding and about, is a woman really capable to run this business? But again, there are more and more role models. There are more and more examples that prove the fact. And it's even statistically proven that not only startups, but even the companies, larger companies that have more women in board, right, in managerial board, are actually ultimately more successful on the long run. And I mean, I don't want to brag again about the grit or courage or even soft skills, but and don't want to be biased, but I always say this diversity, right? Diversity of gender and diversity of different backgrounds, of different skills, different mindsets, and that is really what is dream team, right? And not having 4 women founders or 4 males founders and they're all like 30 years old and they all come from the same university and have spent the whole life together already. I mean, it might be good for them, it might be successful, but sometimes you have to say, so again, I hope that was a good answer to your question around the challenges. And I think there was a second part. Sorry, I forgot.
Well, actually, I had one that came up as we talked, because you did mention that you don't feel like you have exactly challenges, but then maybe you have some lessons still from the process itself that you
Yes.
think would be important to share for somebody looking to start a business that has an idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, my first lesson is start it as soon as possible, actually, honestly, really. I was coining with this idea of starting my own business for years. And then there was always, something like, maybe it's not the right time, or people would tell me why, or you have such a cool job or such a cool salary or whatever, And I have to also admit that this whole COVID situation really made me thinking. And then I said, okay, now it's finally a time, right? Instead of doing I don't know what or reading news or like being worried all the time, I'm channeling all this energy and the motivation full time in this business. And I do have these 2 short experiences of working at other startups, and that helps as well, honestly. So maybe if you are not ready to start your business today, then try being an intrapreneur, like in the company you work for, with this kind of side projects as explained, right? Make an initiative, do something besides your main job, and try that and mingle with others, move in all these networks, in communities, etc., and see if you enjoy that. Of course, you can test all of that, right? And then when you start a company, again, you have to be clear about why you're doing that, right? Because there will be a lot of people who will be telling you, even from your very closest circles, you can imagine, again, why you're doing this, or why you're like spending so much time on this, right? And for me, again, it is about really making a social impact, really help being one part of this puzzle that will make this society, first in Switzerland and then if possible also in the whole Western Europe or globally, to have more diversity in the workplace and more flexibility. And for me, that is my ultimate goal until the end of my life, really to work on that. And I have met a lot of people who are much younger than myself, and I always say this is awesome, right? Because when you're 20 or even 30, what do you have to lose, right? Besides of having courage, you have to be aware of that you really have nothing to lose, really. So I hope these are a few of lessons that I could pass to the audience.
Oh, I think they're very valuable. I think one discrepancy that happens is younger people have less to lose, but maybe a little bit less courage, just because you're younger, you don't know what's going to happen sometimes when you take risks. I'm not sure. I think it depends on people. But
yeah, I think it depends on people. Yeah.
But I do feel like one thing that entrepreneurs, besides being very proactive, which is one thing that you definitely, I feel, sums up some of the advice that you gave, is that they also have great presentation skills, and they have very good speeches. So I wanted to ask you, because we do have a lot of women in the network that do like to present. They also look for speaking opportunities, and you have spoken a lot. You're an avid speaker at conferences. To kind of, if you can give at least a few tips about pitching effectively for a speaking position, and then for doing a great speech once you hopefully get that position.
Yes, definitely. So first, I would say you have to choose a topic that you really know, right? That you really master. Then it is much easier to talk about that, right? And then it is super easy to create the whole presentation, and then later to answer all different possible questions, right? So there has to be something where you really excel. And even if you're not sure what is it, right? A lot of people are not sure. Then you can ask people who work with you. You can ask your boss. You can ask your friends or family members. And then also you can do this reflection exercise, right? What I really, really like to do and what I can do. And then start from that. Then you write down, like, let's say 1 pager, right? Like 1 page script like a high-level script. What would you like to talk about, right? Introduction, like, you know, when you write scripts, even at school. Introduction, and then the whole main part, and then the summary, right? And you make bullet points, you can create a mind map, whatever works for you, right? And then you can review it again by others. And this is how I started. I was already running actually the very first agile testing meetup group in Zurich in 2014, because that was my huge topic and my job actually. And then again, I wanted to exchange knowledge with others from other companies. And this is how I met. That was kind of I'm sorry, I'm now missing the word in English, but it was kind of starter for me to actually approach those people who were even more experienced, of course, in software testing or even agile testing, to ask them, would you be willing to review my abstract? And then if you ask them, right, from your heart and from your motivation, they will help you. Maybe not everybody, but you will definitely find somebody who will help you review your abstract, review your presentation. You can present in front of them. There are so many resources on internet how to excel your presentation. And I can tell you, not every presentation was like super perfect. And I'm anyway somebody who always aims for kind of high quality, but you have to enjoy, by the way, you have to really enjoy presenting. You shouldn't go there present because you think you should present. You should present because you want to present. And then, you know, you choose the conferences or events that you like. Again, I always say, don't go somewhere because whatever, but you go there because you know why you're going there, right? So there was, for me, as being first mom and then an employee and then a public speaker, it was great to go to London a few times or to go to even Chicago last year. Now in these difficult times, I cherish all these memories, right? And that is a huge opportunity, right? To also travel a bit and to meet all these awesome thought leaders on the topic you present, and to get the great feedback. And then you always bring this feedback into your next talk, right? And so I, at the end, changed a bit the topics, right? It started with testing, agile testing, running agile testing community, right? By the way, that was my very first talk. And then later more around agile collaboration, how to make teams much better, to work better together. And then later, last year, with this whole diversity, empowerment, women empowerment topics and gender topics, yes.
I love the evolution, how it went with your
yes, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I can always talk about agile testing or agile collaboration, no problem.
Actually talking about that, because we talked about entrepreneurship, we talked about diversity, but you actually are a woman with an extensive experience in technology. So, and we are a Women Tech Network after all. So I was hoping that you can give some advice, your golden advice for women looking to enter tech or women who are already in tech, based on, you know, being so long in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sure. Well, I'm a huge fan of, let's say, formal education, right? So it helps if you have studied, at least as a bachelor student, a bit of, let's say, IT, computer science, any engineering, right? Again, we see nowadays that at the end, it doesn't really matter what you studied. I know people who studied social sciences, anthropology, journalism, etc., who ended up in tech. And I mean, almost every job nowadays is a bit connected to tech. So, but it does help to study. It does help to go to university or to high education schools, because there you will learn how to think, you will learn what is important, you will learn to distill the information, you know, to read all these books and research or articles. Again, when you're maybe 18 or 20, you might not understand why is that important, but again, it is important. On the other side, it really depends on the personality, right? You maybe don't want to study or don't want to learn, and like that. But then there are so different other ways, right? There are online resources, there are communities again, and so many communities. Like in the last years, it's really crazy, right? How many chances and opportunities there are to learn. And so again, summing up, the learning opportunities, they're immense, right? How to break into tech, it's some other story, right? But again, if you did one or the other course in one or the other thing that really interests you, I also always say to everybody I know, don't study this or learn that if you're not interested, because then it's not a good match. You should really do what you're really excelling in and what really interests you. And then again, it can be so a lot of variety of those roles, right? You can be, for example, social media or communication manager or digital marketing manager, for example. I know so many women, if we are talking about women who are excelling in digital marketing. And by the way, I also know a lot of women who are super good programmers or data scientists or have done PhD in math or statistics. So again, know what you want to do, and then find those resources, find those people and communities that will help you, or courses or universities, and then stay on track, right? Don't give up too soon. And know that it is always a path and learning path of ups and downs, of course, as everything in life, but you have to know that and to enjoy it, right? So I hope that was clear.
Oh,
That makes sense.
I love your advice, because it's not even so much about being a woman; it's just about being you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a universal thing that actually can be useful to anybody. I do have a question from Parvi that it's about how to balance work and other activities of interest. But since we talked so much about job sharing models, if you want to say something more to that, feel free. If not, if you feel like we covered that topic quite a lot, I was going to invite you to give the audience like a final message that you want to do, as we are getting close to the end of the
yes. So shall I answer the question about work and life balance, or?
Well, the way Parvi wrote it is how can we manage work and other activities of interest? I'm guessing it might have been related to passion projects again. But if you think that you have if you want to talk about work-life balance, then go ahead about talk about that. I'm sure people can use it.
Yeah, I think first it depends on the circumstances, right? Because again, in my example, if I have stayed in Serbia, then I would have at least one grandma, right, to be there all the time for me or my kids or my family, right? But here, me and my husband are not near any huge help, right? So we kind of had to make these cuts in our work load and kind of say, okay, you're earning a bit less, but you have more time with your kids. And it's always a matter of organization. How you want to organize your life and work, and in this case, family. What are you going to, let's say, sacrifice? That is true, right? I might not have time to go to beautician every week, right? Or to do whatever, I don't know, to go out every night. But it's just a matter of your priorities. So again, you have to be clear about your priorities, about your organization, and how you're going to communicate that at work and also in your private life. So for work, I advise everybody to find this setup and to find this company you work for, or you even run by yourself, to make it really fit your needs, right? And then it's much easier. Otherwise, if it's not working for both sides, then sooner or later it might be a bit of a problem. And yeah, I hope that answers a tiny bit this question.
I hope so too. But just to add, if somebody wants to ask you questions additionally, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn or somewhere else?
Yes, definitely. LinkedIn. Yeah, I can also post my email address in the chat. There's somebody asking
lovely.
if I have recommendations
Yes.
on diversity in the workspace. And this is a great question.
Podcast
Now,
papers.
none of the podcasts come in my mind, but I have to check that later. But what I did want to mention is one part about diversity. There is actually from this June research and a paper from World Economic Forum. They call it a toolkit for leaders to accelerate social progress in the future of work. And there they state these three main areas of action. Like first is like how you source and select your talent, then how you organize your organization and monitor it. And the third is, again, employees' experience, reward, and development, right? So I think for this part of talent sourcing and selection, we didn't really tackle this in this talk from the point of enterprises or employers, but definitely for the employees, right? And I did say that it is best when it comes from employees itself, right? And then for this part with their experience and development, I think we did tackle that a lot. And so again, I can post maybe a few links later in the chat, but there are so many resources from United Nations even, or from World Economic Forums, or from some other really huge organizations that are experts on these topics that we, by the way, also use for our research and for data we present to companies when we pitch our business. So yeah. And for the books, okay, I'm a huge fan of the whole Lean In movement, so to say, that was started by Sheryl Sandberg, right, from Facebook. And I advise, especially women in this call or in the audience, to read Lean In because it is full of great advice. And also on the website, you will see there are so many circles around this whole Lean In movement. And then there are some few more books around diversity and also gender issues. Yes, I can post them later in the chat.
Yes, that would be awesome. I think everybody would find it very useful. Since we're kind of running a little bit over schedule, do you have anything else that you want to leave the audience with today?
I have noted something.
Sure, go ahead.
Yes. Well, it was a bit of. I mean, I did mention know your why or start with why. You know, that comes from Simon Sinek, whom I'm also a huge fan of. I don't know if you know about him or the audience, but one of this actually. His latest book is about this infinite mindset, right? How you should, it's kind of, if I can somehow paraphrase it, it's kind of growth mindset. And this is really my last message to everybody, right? To employers and employees, to always have a future in mind and always have this thought in mind. What are you actually achieving in the long run, and how you're making your company culture being satisfactory for all employees and of course for the business, right? You don't want to ruin your business, but really create this kind of place where people will thrive. And again, I always say to all individuals, cherish and extend your learnings on this type of growth mindset, right? And understand that maybe not in every situation or every year you will have this super cool project, right? But always you have to find and recognize the opportunity even in your current projects to make it really work for you, and also make it all together as part of this whole puzzle and the roadmap you have in your work life.
Oh, Maja, thank you. That was wonderful ending, I would say. And thank you for the chat. It's been fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot, and we're huge fans of how active you are and how perseverant. And everybody who's here, I just wanted to let you know that you can join us on Hopin for some networking in the networking area. And Maja, if you do have the time, I know that you are busy, but if you do have the time, feel free to join as well and meet some of the people who've been here with us.
Yes,
I just want to thank you. I just want to have a couple of very quick announcements that you can also join us for more fireside chats on November 18th. We're going to have Stephanie LeBlanc Godfrey. We're going to be talking about parenting and taking your children on your career journey. I hope you enjoyed the chat and let us know in the comments. And meanwhile, just to remind you that the Women Tech Global Awards 2020 are happening on December 3rd. Nominations are now available, so make sure to check out who's been nominated. And the finalists will be announced on November 13th. So follow us on social media to stay in the loop. And that is basically it. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And now we're going to see you online. Maja, thank you again.
Thank you, Veselina. Thank you, everybody, for your attention.
Thank you.
It
Bye,
was
everybody.
a real pleasure. Bye, everybody.
For me as well. Bye.